Have you ever lost a loved one? Have you ever lost a loved one to injustice? Have you ever had to watch footage of your loved one dying over and over again? These aren't my questions. These are the questions that Chris Kaba's family asked the crowd outside the Old Bailey after the police officer who killed him, Martin Blake, was found not guilty.
How many of you guys have had to watch your loved ones dying on camera? The family can't be here. On the first day, when we started the trial, we watched footage of Chris being killed. We carried on watching it because it was part of the evidence. My auntie started shaking uncontrollably. Started shaking, started crying uncontrollably. I held her tight. I whispered to her in my language. I said, keep it together, we're in the battlefield. I said, Auntie, it's painful.
The family said that they were advised not to show their emotions as much as possible while they watched the footage in court in the hopes that it would help with the case. They had to stay visibly calm and collected as they watched the video of their own family member being executed by the state over and over. And for what? On the 5th of September 2022, Chris Kaba was stopped by 3 marked Metropolitan Police cars and 1 unmarked car that had been following him in Streatham Hill, South London. Police officers pointing guns at Kaba and shouting orders to get out of the car surrounded him, at which point he tried to drive forward out of the roadblock but was stuck between one of the squad cars and a car parked on the road. At this point, Officer Martin Blake moved around to in front of Kaba's vehicle and shot him with a single round in the forehead. The discourse and media reporting following this has repeatedly asked people to consider what they would have done in Blake's situation, to question his decisions as the only arbiter of whether or not this was a wrong thing to happen. Blake's situation, of course, is pointing a gun at an unarmed man who was stuck in his car and surrounded by armed police. But I think it's worth asking what anyone would do in Kaba's situation. He was being followed by an unmarked police car. These have been an increasingly common sight on the streets of London year on year, cars that appear to be unremarkable until they turn on sirens and flashing lights. Crucially, the car following Kaba hadn't used its sirens or lights, so all he would have known was that someone was following him. The point of police using marked cars, officers in uniform, overwhelming numbers when making an arrest is so that the person being arrested surrenders without incident, and tailing someone in an unmarked car runs directly counter to that. I think if most people were being followed and suddenly found themselves surrounded by shouting men with guns pointing at them, they would probably panic and try to escape. As for Blake's statement that he thought his colleagues were in danger, I find this, frankly, asinine. Kaba's car was completely trapped, and even at the point he tried to drive forward, there was no one in front of the car. In the 2 years since Kaba's death, his family have had to talk to press, attend rallies, organize and campaign tirelessly to demand justice. No family should have to do that while mourning, especially while mourning a 24-year-old who was murdered. In September 2023, Martin Blake was charged with murder. The trial itself, starting October 2nd, 2024, was only 3 weeks long, and on the 21st, a jury deliberated for only 3 hours before finding Blake not guilty. I think British people sometimes think of police violence as an American problem, something that doesn't really affect us here in the same way, and this logic seems to be enough to write off cases like this as flukes, even when they follow all the same patterns as US police killings. The IOPC, Independent Office of Police Conduct, which is responsible for investigating cases like the murder of Chris Kaba, reported 19 deaths in police custody in their 2020 to 2021 period. 23 deaths in their 2022 to 2023 period, one of which would have been Chris Kaba's, and 24 deaths in their period 23 to 2024. By comparison, in the US, 1,002 people were killed by police in 2023, and so far in 2024, 1,117 people were killed by police. This means that no matter what difference we like to tell ourselves exists, UK police are involved in as many people's deaths as an average US state. I want to be clear about my position here. I don't believe the solution to finding justice and peace in society involves special agents of the state who can exercise carceral power over others. I'm an abolitionist, and I don't expect to see perfectly eye to eye with people who don't see the police as fundamentally existing to terrorize the working class on behalf of the ruling class. People who see the police's racism as some kind of accident rather than an integral feature of their history and existence. But I think the outcome we have right now is one everyone can agree is wrong. The British state has sanctioned the murder of a 24-year-old man who never got to meet his baby daughter by finding Martin Blake not guilty. I think everything about this case tells us that justice must involve a systemic change to how policing works. The very fact Martin Blake can kill someone and be found not guilty is an injustice that goes beyond his individual decision-making. It is an injustice in the power that the state has over our lives. So, if you're watching this before Saturday 26th of October 2024 and you can attend, please join the annual march of the UFFC, United Families and Friends campaign, a coalition of people affected by deaths in police, prison, mental health and immigration custody. This will be the 25th annual march because these people have been campaigning for change for a quarter of a century now. Otherwise, if you can't attend, you can follow the UFFC for updates, donate to it, or sign up to get involved through their website, but I'd like to also draw your attention to Inquest, whose primary work is in holding police and public bodies accountable. They've done great work in the campaign for a Hillsborough Law, a bill which will require a standard of honesty from public bodies in the UK and ensure that victims and families have equal publicly funded legal representation in cases of government injustice, which should come into force next year. Inquest are currently working on the No More Deaths campaign aimed at creating a national oversight mechanism to ensure that inquiries into preventable state-related deaths lead to actual changes being implemented. Seeing what the Hillsborough Law campaign achieved in the years immediately after the Grenfell fire killed 72 people in London showed me that our country isn't as indifferent and cruel as the ruling class want us to think we are. They don't want us to believe that we care about each other, or that that care is capable of manifesting real change. But we do, and it is. Supporting the work that Inquest does means campaigning for more honesty, transparency, and accountability from those responsible in cases like that of Chris Kaba, Mark Duggan, Sean Rigg, the Grenfell fire, or the Hillsborough disaster, or more besides. In cases where it feels almost impossible to say what justice would really mean, it's clearly a step in the right direction. The reason I'm making this video is because after the jury acquitted Martin Blake, Chris Kaba's family asked the crowd outside the court to talk about it, to make videos, to use social media to get more people down to the UFFC protest, more people involved in the campaign to prevent more people from losing their family to state violence. They told the crowd, "We are the ones we have been waiting for."